Welcome into this episode of Coach's Corner. Jordan Woodruff with you, and joined today by Lynne Cllenback with tennis for Ponca City. And we are in a very busy time
We are.
when it comes to tennis. We'll talk more about that coming up. But first off, this is your first time doing a Coach's Corner. So let's hear a little bit about yourself and kind of the journey here to Ponca City in coaching. So tell us a little bit about your background when it comes to tennis.
So I'm actually in Ponca City because my husband actually works at Phillips. So I taught in Houston for a couple years before we moved up here. You know, oil kind of goes from Houston to here
Right.
or Houston to other places. So, but that's kind of what got me here. As far as my tennis background, I actually played college basketball and college tennis.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
You don't hear two-sport athletes very much anymore.
Yeah. But I had a good time. Tennis, though, stuck with me for sure. So out of the two sports, I continued playing tennis and basketball. I quit after my freshman year just because it was too difficult. It was hard to juggle being a student athlete. It was a lot to take on. So I stuck with tennis. It was a lot more relaxed, a lot more chill. And I was the number 1 seed for singles, and I played a number 3 seed for doubles. And that just means I was the best singles player at my college.
Still, though, that's something to be proud of
Yeah.
when you can do something like that. And you know what? Tennis is kind of a little bit of an underrated sport in Oklahoma because you got a pretty good tennis program, girls tennis especially, down the road at Oklahoma State. And there's a lot of good tennis athletes across the state of Oklahoma.
Oh, yeah. And it's hard for us in Ponca because we are in like this weird island where I give lessons in town and there's no one else.
Right.
So it's really, really difficult when you're competing with Bixby, who has private coaches, Jinx, who has private coaches, North, who has private coaches, and are really nice. All of them have really nice tennis facilities. And the thing is, we still go there and we compete and we do the best that we can. But it's hard against some of those top-notch schools.
Well, and the other thing in Ponca City compared to those other places, a lot of these kids are exposed to tennis early on.
Mm-hmm.
Ponca City, maybe kids aren't exposed to the idea of tennis until later on. You know, it's not like playing Little League baseball or playing Little League basketball or football. Tennis kind of comes later, where some of those bigger places, those kids are exposed a lot earlier.
Yeah, in Ponca, our kids are exposed to tennis in 8th grade. And it really should be happening earlier. I mean, those big schools that I just talked about, those kids are starting tennis at 4 and 5 years old, where they're already learning that hand dexterity, the racket. You know, it's not hand-eye coordination, it's eye-racket coordination. And so understanding that and knowing that, I mean, I'm giving lessons right now to kids that are 7 and 8 years old. So if we can start kids earlier, oh man, the things that we could do in the tennis world here in Ponca.
Well, and it's such instinctual sport. That's the thing. And I mean, all sports are like that. But with tennis, the bounce of the ball, the way to put the racket up and make the ball spin and fall in different places, that's something that you really have to do and do a lot
And
to get good.
It's a finesse sport in the end of the day,
Yeah.
you know? And it's weird because we'll get a lot of volleyball kids that come out and play tennis. And in volleyball, everything's in front of you, right? Whereas in tennis, everything's to the side of you. And it's actually weird because you're turned to the side, but you're actually making contact in front of you. And it's been interesting to see just like how volleyball actually translates and how we have to break a lot of habits, you know, as they come along. But yeah, it's a finesse sport for sure, you know, and it's interesting, but it's so much fun, and the kids love it. Once they get those little things down, I mean, we can get some good tennis players coming through the program.
Well, and do you see like a more of an interest in tennis? I'll tell you, one of the things I think that maybe helping tennis out too is this influx of pickleball. I mean, because people are kind of getting a miniature version in a way.
Yeah.
And I think it leads to, hey, I'm pretty good. It's not like, you know, a lot of times the only tennis anybody was exposed to in Oklahoma was table tennis, you know? So now you got this influx of pickleball, not just in Oklahoma, across the nation. So maybe parents are playing that and they're like, hey, this seems like something maybe my kid could do. So are you seeing maybe a little bit more interest in the state because of maybe some external factors?
A lot of our kids, they'll be done with practice and they're like, hey, you want to go play pickleball at the country club? So no, for sure. I'm actually thinking, and this is a prediction, so if this comes true, I'm the one that said it first. I think, because right now tennis is just a spring sport. We can't start playing or doing anything until December. which is interesting because I'm from Texas, and in Texas, tennis is a year-round
Right.
sport. I'm thinking that in order to replace tennis really in the fall, I think it's going to be pickleball.
Well, and it makes sense because baseball, you have fall baseball for a lot of schools. You have softball, slow pitch, and then fast pitch.
Mm-hmm.
So it does make sense to be able to do something like that. And plus, pickleball is the fastest growing sport in the nation as of right now. And eventually it'll trickle down to our kids. So I'm with you. I think that's a good prediction. I think that could. And I mean, 10 years ago, people that said we'd have women's wrestling, for instance, some
And here
people
we
said
are.
no. And here we are. And it's not just there. It's big here in the
Yeah.
States. So I totally agree with you on that.
And I've talked to a couple of coaches in the area. I've talked to the head coach for North. And it's hard to advance a sport when you are only you're a single, couple of months. If you can take that and increase it to a full year, I mean, think of the things that we can do. We can have more kids that are D1 athletes, D2 athletes in tennis instead of these kids that, okay, I'm senior year, I'm done. That's it. We're good.
Well,
And
it's so tough too because it's a lot harder, I think, with some of the other sports like tennis. Going to a court and finding competition there summer. Football, even you had breaks. Now you got 7-on-7 going on. Basketball, you got AAU. Baseball, you got travel league ball. So you have all this stuff, and you have this maybe in tennis, but maybe it's not as big of impact, and it's a little harder in Ponca City because the traveling would be so tough because you'd probably have to go to Tulsa or Oklahoma City to really get that good experience that you need.
Oh, for sure. But I will say, just like a little plug in for tennis, it is a sport that you can easily play. You get a $25 racket from Walmart, and you go to the courts in town, which are open and available at any time until we get the new courts, possibly. But they're available anytime, and you can just go out and hit with friends. Some of our players on our team are completely self-taught, and it's because they went out and they hit a couple tennis balls with their mom or dad. And here they are, on JV, varsity, and playing for us. So it's a really easy sport to pick up. It is hard to get the finesse behind
Right.
it. But with YouTube and with just people in town, there's so many people that will teach you. So I think that if you think of it that way, honestly, I'm just excited for what can happen in the coming years for tennis in Ponca. And especially with pickleball on the rise. Honestly, all of those factors, we should be having kids that start a little bit younger.
Yeah. Well, you bring up a good point. $50.
Yeah.
You can go out and you can start playing tennis.
And that racket will last you your whole life.
Right.
Now, as you get older, you probably need to splurge
You
on
want
a
a
little
better
bit
one,
expensive
yeah.
racket. But the easy thing is you just get that, you get a couple balls, and you're good to go.
Yeah.
You do kind of need a hitting partner. But
That's the thing. You got to find that partner. That's it, unlike basketball, where you can go out and just shoot, or you need kind of like baseball. You need somebody to throw back and forth to, right?
Yeah.
So in tennis, you got to hit it back and forth to each other. I guess you could probably find a machine and a wall to hit, but it's probably a little tougher than maybe some other things.
Oh, the wall will win 100% of the time. So
It always does, yeah.
It does, and it's super frustrating. Even for someone like me who was a college tennis athlete, the wall wins every time, no matter who you are. You could be probably Novak Djokovic, and he would still lose against the wall. So, it just it's a losing game, no matter who you are. But it's still something that can help you out with the technique and getting you there.
Yeah, my goal, I'd go out and get it across the net and into the play area. That would be my choice. Keep it on the court. Now, I wouldn't want to go play Serena Williams tomorrow. Don't get me wrong.
No one wants to challenge her.
Yeah, no doubt about it. So let's get into a little bit of what's going on currently, though, too. Tennis, the structure is a little bit more interesting because you have the girls, you have the boys, you have the team aspect. So kind of talk about the postseason and what's going on with tennis right now.
So we're actually, for girls, we are finished with our season. We just finished with conference, and then we went to regionals, and unfortunately our girls did not, we did not make it to state. You can qualify as a team or individually, and we did neither of those things. Boys are actually, on Monday, we are going to regionals. And then if we win at regionals, we will go to state on Friday of this next week. So that's kind of where we're at as far as season's concerned. Postseason, we're just kind of getting ready and to gear up for the upcoming season for next year. We can't, unfortunately, start actually having long practices until December 1st, but we will be playing, during the actual period. So that's what we've got going up the pipeline. So
Yeah, and what's some of the rules? Because OSSA has some interesting rules when it comes to stuff. Like you said, you can't go December 1st with team activities. But tennis is a sport that I feel like a kid could go out there and hit the ball back and forth with you and even learn a little bit. Is that legal? Are you allowed to do stuff like that as a coach?
I believe we have up to an hour a day.
Okay.
So that's usually just the period in which we have them. So, I mean, it's a little bit frustrating, but a lot can happen in an hour.
Yeah, because I mean, it's like I remember, like coaches in basketball, because you play basketball too. You could open the gym up, and the coach would go sit in the office, but they couldn't really do any coaching or really be on the court with you at that time.
Yeah.
So with tennis, I feel like it's a different animal in a lot of different ways, because it's an individual activity more than really a team activity, even though you have a team aspect to it. So it just feels like there'd be a lot of benefit, and I'm sure a lot of the girls and boys call up their friend and say, hey, let's go hit today, right? And they're really working on their game.
You'll actually see them out there at night just having a good time. They'll go out there with 4 or 5 of their friends and just hit around. And so our kids are really highly motivated. The ones that we have now are highly motivated to actually work outside, which is awesome. I would love a team aspect, though. There are some tournaments where you can actually qualify as teams to go on, or you can qualify your team to win like first, second, or third place, and you'll actually get a medal as a team. But where I'm coming from in Texas, there's actually team tournaments in the fall. So I know I talked about pickleball being a fall sport, and that could be something, but I would also love to take on what Texas does, where they'll do an actual team. So in the fall, there would be a team tournament kind of style. It's like a duel where you would just play against another team. And in the spring, it would be like your traditional like tournaments that you'd play. But we could call up, like in fall, we could call up, Stillwater. And what we do is we play 1 through 6. So I would take my top 6 players. They would all play singles. And then we would take them and develop them into doubles teams.
Yeah.
And then we would have 3 doubles. And then we would have a mixed doubles match, and it would be the first, or it's whoever wins best out of 19 points.
Yeah,
at that point,
it's college. That's what I'm saying. College tennis, if you've never been, is really exciting. The team aspect, because you have multiple courts going on. You're trying to watch it all, and what happens over here could affect what happens over here. So, yeah, the team aspect, I'd love to see that on the high school level. I think that would be warranted. I mean, we do that in wrestling, right? You think of wrestling dual state, and then you have your individual stuff that goes on, and they even do it at the same time of year. So I would love to see a model with tennis where you could bring in that team aspect, because I think individuals, it's great. You want to see that individual glory, but there's something about doing it with a team that just means a lot more.
And what's interesting is talking with a lot of the head coaches at these different tournaments, they're wanting it, but previous coaches in years prior have not wanted it. And I think it's because a lot of those previous coaches wanted a break, but really it's about transforming our student athletes to be better, especially in those off-season moments. They could get better instead of just kind of having just that hour. If we could turn that into a team environment, it would be, oh man, a blessing.
Yeah, I can tell you're excited if they would ever do that. Maybe they'll do it one day. So what is your plan kind of for the summer? And let's talk about next year a little bit. What do you got as far as next year, as far as the growth of this Ponca City tennis program?
Yeah, so for this summer, I know that there's going to be practices every once in a while. I do know that there's going to be tryouts. I do not know when those tryouts are going to be, but they will be posted most likely on the pcps.us website. And then as far as next year, we've got to work on just getting better as a team so we can compete at those higher level tournaments. And that's just getting individual skills in and just getting everybody ready to play really high intensity matches. So it's going to be a long road and a hard battle ahead, but it's something I know our kids can do.
Well, and I say this with every sport, tennis the same way. 6A, the quality of athletes are unbelievable.
Oh, yeah. I mean, we're going up against... just to kind of explain, because I know a lot of people don't know the tennis world, there's something called a UTR, which is a universal tennis rating. Every single kid in the state, in the nation, has one. If they are good. Yeah. And so we're going to tournaments where we're going up against kids first round who have a 9 UTR, which is a astronomical number if you guys didn't know that. And it's hard to stay motivated and excited when you're about to play someone that going into the match that is going to beat you. And it's interesting because there are other team sports that you might say, oh, they're a really good team, but you know that you can possibly win. But when you go into tennis, it's really hard when you know that the person you're going to play is going to be a D1 athlete and is already signed for it. It's 1 versus 1. It's not that one kid on a team of 5 and you're trying to beat the whole team. So, you can't face guard that one kid.
Yeah. Well, and it's almost, in a way, it's the beauty of tennis, but also maybe a fault, is it's a game where it's structured so the best player wins.
Yes.
And the thing is it's not, you do see upsets, don't get me wrong, you'll see that in tennis, but they're a little bit more of a rarity, as usually an upset, it's not because that player played a good day, it's because the other player played a bad game. Yeah. So it's just the structure of tennis, and maybe that's why the team aspect would make things a little bit better, because the structure of tennis is it's focused on that best athlete out there is going to be the one that wins. And like I said, that's a beautiful thing because that's ultimately the ultimate goal of sports, right? But at the same time, those upsets are so much fun.
And one of our goals this summer is actually to get a lot of our kids UTR'd. So going into these tournaments with an actual UTR would help us be seeded in a higher. So when we go to tournaments, the coaches will actually seed all of their players, and usually you'll have an 8-team tournament, so you'll have 8 spots for that singles position. So you'll have to figure out, literally go 1 through 8. Who's the best? Who's the worst? And you need to seed them accordingly. The kids with UTRs, though, usually get 1 through 4.
They're going to get the benefit of the doubt.
Yes. But if I sit there and I'm at a meeting and I say, this kid, another coach has said, hey, this kid has a 6 UTR, and they look at me and they say, hey, what's your UTR? And you say, well, I don't have a UTR. This UTR against my non-UTR gets this kid seated over mine.
Yeah.
So one of the big things we need to work on this summer for sure is going into some UTR tournaments and getting our kids ranked.
Well, it's very interesting for sure. And a lot of work ahead, but a lot of promise ahead as well, as we talked about. So really excited about the future of Ponca City Tennis, and really happy that you were able to come in today as kind of just telling us the tennis landscape, and maybe we'll get some boys that can get qualified. If not, we'll get ready and go to next year and see if we can't get somebody qualified then, and just be begging the OSSA for a team aspect before long, right?
Oh, yeah. That's the plan.
All right. That's Lynne Cllenback. Appreciate your time.
Of course. Thank you.
Thank you, Coach. And that's going to do it for today's Wildcat Coaches Show. So for the next time, Coach's Corner, we'll catch you as we'll be back with some more people coming up. And before long, the seasons are going to end. We'll have our year in review with Coach Jason Levitt, who's now was a coach, was AD, now is going to move on to Director of Operations, if you haven't heard. So we'll have our year in review with him coming up here in just a couple of weeks. But for Wildcat Coaches, Jordan Woodruff saying so long. And until next time, go Cats.